Called The Untold Story of Raregroove.
Jeez, that's a biggie. Where do you begin though?
Well, you got to tell me where you began, because the idea is to tell the story through the dancers who were actually there.
Well, I came in probably around 83, 84. I'd already been back on the boogie scene and stuff since about 81, 82. But that was playing quite contemporary music for the time. So it was records that had come out within the last 5 years. There wasn't a lot of very old records. And so the whole Raregroove thing really started for me, I think, Cat in the Hat in Leicester Square, Barrie and Lascelle. And then Soul to Soul, Africa Centre, with yourself as the unsung hero, because everyone's always given credit to Trevor Nelson and Jazzy B, but people who actually went would know who actually played the records, and it wasn't either of those two. That's all I'll say. Let the history book stand corrected on that one. And the only way I got into the Africa Centre was that we were meant to be going to a warehouse party out by Milton Keynes, and this was in the days when everything was so illegal that you never knew where it was. So anyway, it turned into a magical mystery tour trying to get to this warehouse party, and it was with actually yourself and Andy Shaft. Hi Andy.
Wicked Pulse.
Wicked Pulse, that's it. Wicked Pulse and Two Damn Funky organisations. Anyhow, didn't get to Milton Keynes, ended up on the service station, turned back, but we all got let into Africa Centre for free. And that was the first time I went down to the Africa Centre. And then everything started to tie together, because you still had the boogie scene as personified by Paul Anderson. You now also had like a lot of the P-Funk, Minneapolis style funk from the Cat in the Hat via Barrie and Lascelle's. And then you had the Africa Centre where you guys were just playing some different shit altogether. So between the three, it was pretty well served for every type of music in only 3 clubs. And none of them were like really big name, big price venues. But compared to nowadays, I think there is such a lack of variety. Because I remember we could go out 6 days a week and have a full-time job. I think the only day we didn't go out was Tuesday. Part of the thing with the whole Raregroove scene was that you had this happening in fairly central London, but then at the same time, starting up around the same time, you had what used to be, which was pretty much Good Times, which was Joey and Norman J. But originally it was a reggae sound system with some soul, and as the Raregroove scene developed, it became more and more about Raregroove with a little splash of reggae. And then an offshoot of Good Times would have been the Young Disciples, which is really Femi and Marco, first of all as DJs and then as the group. So there are all these little offshoot connections, and then I'm trying to think of where else the other areas were. East London was really Trevor and Martin Madhatter. They were based down in Leytonstone, and contrary to popular belief, they played in the lovers rock and soft soul category. They were not Raregroove DJs or hardcore, deep funk boys or any of that. That's just bollocks. I'm sorry, but sometimes people need to be told things the hard way. They were never really heavy, but because Trevor, as an up-and-coming DJ, had a manager. I won't say her name, she knows who she is. And what people didn't realise was that she was also the listings editor of Touch magazine. So everything that our Trevor did, she gave a 110 out of 100% rating. And that is how the legend was built up, because his manager ran the listings section of what was the so-called underground listings magazine. Touch magazine, Jamie DeCrees, how's it going? So that's the kind of shenanigans that went on. But then you had the smaller club events, but the big things were to actually do illegal parties. And that's where things get interesting, because you also had Charlie Brown's. How can we ever forget Charlie Brown's? South London and Elephant area, we had Charlie Brown's. So we had all these different systems, and most of the time everyone just worked together, but occasionally you'd get some cash-in quick merchants who would deliberately grass up the other parties to police to ensure that everyone ended up at their event. So the security sometimes was very, very heavy. I remember one of the family function shaken finger pop parties, which is like the Norman, Femi and everyone. Judge Jules, when he was playing funk and allegedly ex-law student. But that party, what happened, you had to go to an address. There you met somebody who sent you about 300 yards in the opposite direction. Then you met somebody else who made you go around a corner and then walk for another 100 yards. And eventually, by the time you'd spoken to about 10 people, you had no fucking idea where you were. And then they said it's around the corner, and there it was. But it took about 15 minutes just to find the doorway. So what would happen, so the police could never find it, because by the time they tried to figure it out, the link would be broken and everyone would get rerouted. Another party place was Clink Street, down by the Clink Street dungeons. There used to be a building, it was just called Clink Street, and they used to have parties in there. Unfortunately, one night the flying squad came steaming in through the ground floor, forcing everyone to run upstairs and jump out the first floor windows. That was a very iffy moment, because that would have definitely been the lock-up for anyone who got caught, because it was technically breaking and entering. The infamous party with Jake and Finger Pop, the one where you had to walk for miles, that was under the flyover. But we ended up dancing in red brick dust, and by the time the party was finished, everyone came out of the party at about 6 o'clock in the morning, walking back to Marble Arch to catch night buses, because they didn't go around everywhere in those days, and everyone was coated in red brick dust from the knees downwards, as if it was some kind of weird hippie cult. Got a lot of funny looks that day, but it was worth it for the party, because that's what it was. Everything was worth it for the party. And that's what I find nowadays. People are more interested in talking. If you see young people, they stand outside just talking, or they stand on the dance floor talking. They're not interested in experiencing. They're interested in talking about witnessing somebody else's experience. It's as if through the fake reality TV, people have forgotten how to just be part of. Now they just want to be a passive audience. And I think that's what's changed the club scene so much, so dramatically compared to what we had. Because we valued every hour, because you never knew when the police were going to come steaming in. So every hour was a great hour. Of course, you had proper clubs like the WAG Club, Legends, but that was a different experience. It was more controlled, because there was a license. The warehouse parties, that was the crack. You also had the things like the Enter the Dragon parties, where they'd have an entire fun fair inside the building. I think the first one was in Kensington. It was something in the something park. I can't remember the name of the venue. It's by the casino. And then they had like an entire fun fair inside a nightclub. And then they did that at the academy as well. Unfortunately, that one got cut short, because a certain bouncing family of bouncers, I won't say the surnames, there had been a bit of beef earlier, and so they decided to pay back the bouncers at the academy. So they came steaming in with swinging baseball bats while people are trying to dance and drive around on dodgems. Total fucking carnage. Another great night. I'm Sam Noel. As you can see, I'm a grey beard, old lag, old boogie dancer from back in the electric ballroom days. And then I went into the whole jazz dance thing, the whole rare groove thing, the whole house scene, and even into the early R&B scene, at which point I pretty much gave up, because the music was just shit at that point. But as the old music started to come back in the last 10 years or so, I've started to come back out again. I'm at Servant Jazz Quarters in Islington? Dalston. Listening to the sounds of Barrie, Sharpe and Lascelle's, the original Cat in the Hat crew. So everything's come full circle in 2019.